Well, welcome everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is now 10 o'clock, so in the interest of time, we'll go ahead and get started. The meeting of the Access Academics and Student Success Committee is called to order. Thank you all for being here this morning. And so we will first call the roll. And Secretary, would you call the roll?
Chairwoman Scarlett?
Here.
Commissioner Knight?
Here.
Commissioner Wharton? Chairwoman Whitten?
Here.
Secretary Hargett?
Here.
Commissioner Morrison?
Here.
Chairwoman, you have 4 voting members present and a quorum.
Thank you. Next is the adoption of the agenda. With no questions or objections, I will entertain a motion.
So
And a
moved.
second?
Second.
Thank you. To adopt the agenda for today's meeting. With no objection, we will do a voice vote for all of the votes today. And all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion carries. Next, we move to the public comment. The next item is the public comment section. Dr. Gentile, have we received any public comments for this meeting?
We received no public comment, Madam Chair.
Well, thank you, Dr. Gentile. So with no additional questions or objections, I will entertain a motion and a second to adopt the minutes for the November 15th.
So moved. Second.
Committee meeting. Thank you for the first and the second. With no objection, we will do another voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Y'all make these meetings way too easy.
It's your leadership.
I figured that. Okay, we're going to take this seriously, guys.
I was being serious.
Please, God, tell me this is not on camera somewhere, because we do not need
It is.
Oh, gosh. All right, regular calendar is where we're going to start today. And the first item on our agenda is the post-secondary education authorization. And there are 2 parts to this agenda item. And without any objection, we will vote on them as a set. Dr. Stephanie Ballard Chase, who I haven't seen in a long time, so I'm so very happy to see you.
Good to see you.
She is the Senior Director of Post-Secondary State Authorization, and she will provide an overview of the Post-Secondary Education Authorization and then answer any questions.
Thank you, Chairman Winton, members of the committee, and Dr. Gentile. Good morning. There are 2 institutions for your consideration today for regular authorization and 2 institutions for optional expedited authorization. They're in section CC1A and CC1B. I'll be happy to answer any questions or go into detail if you would like me to.
Okay, well, if there are no questions or objections, I will entertain a motion and a second on agenda item 2, post-secondary education authorization.
So.
Thank you. And we will do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, well, the motion carries. Our next item, thank you, Dr. Belichis. Our next item on the calendar are 2 academic policy revisions. Academic Policy A10, new academic programs, approval process, and Academic Policy A16, which is the expedited academic programs approval process. Dr. Julie Roberts, how are you? Dr. Roberts, you are recognized.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Whitten. So you do, in your binder, you have the red line version and a clean version in our CIA and B. Both of these policies today involve the new academic program approval process, which I know we've been talking about quite a bit. And so these proposed policy changes really primarily affect the timing of when the external review takes place. Just as a quick reminder, the external review is when we have a subject matter expert come in and evaluate a proposed program. And so through our conversations with our campuses, they expressed a want to have some flexibility of when that could occur. And so the way the policy is currently written for both of the expedited and the regular is prescriptive of when that external review has to happen. So the changes that we've proposed primarily just provide flexibility of when that external review can happen. But it does still have to occur before we bring any sort of program to the commission for approval.
Thank you for that, Dr. first, and I'll take the first question and then go into if anyone else has any additional questions. So today, if we have a set time and a university says, okay, well, I'd like to have my expedited review early, could we go back in and do an additional review, or are we completely precluded from that, from additional?
There's nothing preventing us from doing that. We have done that before, even the way that it's set up now. If we have a review that is really substantial, if there's a lot of changes, especially when we've done it in the past, it typically is if there's some pretty significant curriculum shifts. And so that is something that we absolutely could do. Yeah. Thank you for the question.
Any additional questions?
So my question is not related to the timing.
Okay.
But it's other things which we've had conversations, but just to kind of bring it up in conversation, it's tied to the post-approval monitoring. So it's not timing, got it. The
Sure.
timing is fine. But how often do schools close programs? And is that reported to the commission? Can that be reported to the commission? And is that tied back to post-approval monitoring or something else?
Yeah, and it's couple of things there. We can absolutely bring a termination report. I know we discussed this a little bit earlier. With our updated API, we recently, the academic program inventory, we recently did a whole overhaul of that program inventory, so we now can easily pull that number. I actually, after we talked, pulled it. We've had since June 34. Katie's the master of the API. I think we've had 34 programs terminated since this June. And so some of those have been those that were on the post-approval monitoring report. This last time, I think we had 4. So I think that with the monitoring, we're at least taking a look at those programs every year. So I think that you could make a case that, yes, part of that is that we've been watching them a little more closely. But I can't say that there's a direct tie necessarily. And then I feel like there's one other part of your question.
Well, so the other part of my question is that reported to the commission? Which,
It has not been, but we can start, if that would be something that you would want us to do.
If you think about what's needed across the state from a workforce development or other ways, like we approve programs and then they come to life, and then we have the 2, 3, 4 years. In some cases, there's people have been on this list for 11 years, right? For a variety of reasons. I think it would be valuable for us to understand why we still keep some of these programs on the list, even though we're consistently calling them out every year. But also for programs that are closing, maybe for us to understand, like, are the local governing boards making the decision to close the programs? And I would also love to understand, are we seeing success in the programs that we're approving, I guess?
Yeah, and that's what the post-approval monitoring has tried to do in the past, and we know we've had a lot of conversation. We're actually going to talk about it again a little bit today at the audit committee to bring those kinds of answers to you. I think with the programs that are closing, they do. I looked at Katie. They do provide us a rationale, right, of why they're closing, and so we could absolutely summarize that because I think we haven't leveraged that in the past, and I think that's a really good idea. Looking at what is the rationale of why these programs are closing? I think that could be telling.
But would you all find that of interest, or am I just
Absolutely.
gonna?
We could absolutely bring that to the next committee meeting if you'd like.
Do we get a quarterly update on what changes, or is it like yearly? Can we update the API, or is it as it happens?
As it happens. Yeah, we have quarterly reporting periods, but we let them submit whenever. So I know you got like 50 yesterday. So we get them, and that's everything. That's not just the campuses have to notify us of a lot of things. If they change the program modality, so if they add an online component to that program, if they add a concentration, terminate a concentration, they change the credit hours. So we track all of that in our academic program inventory. So
I wouldn't propose bringing it to the next meeting or anything, but maybe next time you provide us with the post.
yeah, we could do that.
Monitoring report, it's included in that.
Absolutely, we can do that.
Any additional questions? Okay, well, if no additional questions or objections, I will entertain a motion and a second on agenda item 2, academic policy revisions.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We will do a voice vote. All in favor, please say aye. Thank you, motion carries. Now we will go to our next discussion item, which is potential changes to academic program approval process. And this item on the agenda is also by Dr. Roberts, our Chief Academic Officer, and she will introduce Angelica Jones, the Director of Academic Affairs, as well as Dr. Catherine Brackett, who is also Director of Academic Affairs, and they will both present information on the agenda and then answer any additional questions.
Thank you again, Chairwoman Winton. We have, as I've mentioned earlier, been talking a lot about the new academic approval process, and we've, last meeting, had a very robust conversation about what we've heard. And so today, my colleagues have been very hard at work figuring out what are we going to do. And so they're going to present, give you an overview of the work that's been happening since our last commission meeting, and also give you some potential options of what opportunities we have to change our process based on the current policy, with the policy revision with external review. So with that, I'm going to invite Dr. Brackett and Ms. Jones up to review. And you do have some handouts in front of you that they're going to be addressing as well.
Good morning, everyone. We're excited today to have a conversation about potential changes to the academic program approval process. These suggestions come from countless conversations and input from you and your fellow commissioners, conversations with our institutional partners of various ranks, from internal conversation across bureaus and THEC, and across our academic affairs team. We need to start this presentation by thanking all of you and our valued colleagues and collaborators for having these conversations with us again and again and again, and for being candid, flexible, and creative as we work to find possibilities that will serve our institutions, our state, and especially our students. We do want to offer a special shout out to our former colleague, Dr. Ryan Korstange, who has joined the staff of TBR, for his incredible contributions to and support of these ideas. All of the options we're presenting to you today would change the academic program approval process within the constraints of the current policy. Each of the three potential processes are meant to focus on THEC's role and responsibilities laid out by statute and policy, while providing a faster timeline and greater autonomy to local institutional boards. We'll start with a quick reminder of how the current process works. Then we'll provide an overview of the input we've heard regarding the current program approval process over the past year, including what's not working and what's valuable in the current process. We'll then explain the rationale for the three options we're presenting today and go over each potential process. Prior to today's meeting, my colleague AJ and I met with our campus liaisons, who are our primary contacts for program development at the institutions, to discuss all of these options with them. We provided an opportunity for anonymous feedback, and we'd like to share what they told us. Then we'll offer potential next steps, including an implementation timeline and a recommendation. Finally, we want to and need to hear from you. We want to ensure that all of these processes reflect areas of concern that are critical to commission members so that you feel you have the information needed to make informed decisions about the approval of programs. Based on the feedback submitted by our campuses and our conversation today, we plan to walk away with a clear path forward, and will ensure campuses have an opportunity to comment on the procedural guidelines issued. So here's our quick reminder, and again, you have this handout in front of you in case you need it. The current process is made up of at least 5 primary steps that are delineated here. First, campuses submit a letter of notification, which we'll call an LON for the rest of this presentation. The LON includes the pieces bulleted under the LON portion of the graphic. So that's overview, background, feasibility, projections, costs, and revenues. Campuses have 15 days to offer public comment on these LONs. And THEC staff evaluates the LON in terms of the criteria and in light of the public comment we receive. After THEC approves the LON, a campus can begin developing the new academic program proposal, or NAP for short. The NAP combines the revised pieces of the LON and adds some additional details. Those details are delineated under the NAP section there. Next is external review. In the former policy or current policy, external review occurs alongside the NAP proposal. As you've just heard, though, the process is going to change going forward so that external review could be more flexible and the timing could change. Following external review, the campus responds to questions posted by the reviewer and THEC staff. Once all questions have been addressed sufficiently, a letter of support is transmitted to the campus to request to appear before the commission. THEC staff approval currently occurs at the LON stage and following the revision to the NAP. The current process has a minimum of 3 submissions, and in the past, there were sometimes 1 to 3 revisions of the LONs and or NAPs, though in the past year that has decreased significantly as we've worked to work more closely with our campus colleagues. The next 2 slides are a summary of constructive feedback we've gotten from campus stakeholders, including presidents, CAOs, program liaisons, and faculty program developers, as well as from comments, questions, and concern all of you and your colleagues have raised at several committee meetings, or commission meetings, There was general agreement that the following items were valuable pieces of the current process. So we've mentioned these to you already, public comment, external review, alignment with accreditation standards to avoid duplication of effort on the campus, and the presence of a coordinating body to ensure consistent quality. We also heard a number of suggestions for improvement, which you're also very familiar with. The process takes too long, has too many steps, and timing of board and commission approval can be very difficult. The requirements of the proposal can be overwhelming for faculty authors, and they're not always completely aligned with what campuses view as THEC's statutory role. There is duplication of effort across institutional, system, and THEC staff. The current process provides less autonomy for institutional boards, and there is sometimes a lack of consistency in THEC staff. So now I want to talk to you a little bit about what informed all of these proposed processes we're going to present today. First of all of them could be implemented quickly and without extensive policy updates. That said, we are of course open to additional policy changes and expect to come to you with adjustments in May 2024. Second, all of these are intended to expedite, simplify, and streamline the process. Review processes have been made simultaneous. We've cut required materials to those laid out in policy and statute, and we believe that any of these changes could shorten the process by 3 to 6 months, perhaps more. All of these potential changes reflect a streamlined focus on the criteria for review laid out by statute and policy, and reduce the required information fields by roughly 30%. In short, we might lose some details in certain areas, but what would remain in the process would be the things that campuses feel that we are intended to consider. We hope that these suggestions reflect the comments that we've heard over the past year, and we hope that we believe they also give greater autonomy and flexibility for local institutional boards. We think that they will provide further alignment of processes within THEC, including program approval, post-approval monitoring, and quality assurance funding. And finally, we believe that these new processes could create additional bandwidth for program staff that will allow us to do some of the work suggested by our campus partners and by commission members in other areas of interest, including identifying areas of emerging need. So at this point, we're going to shift to introducing the 3 processes that we're considering today. Again, you have these right in front of you, so you can lay them out and see the differences. This is process 1. Process 1 would be, at minimum, a 2-step process designed to align with our statutory responsibilities and policy regarding criteria review. First, the campus would submit the documentation required for public comment and external review simultaneously, and could immediately begin planning for external review. Should an external reviewer request additional information, the campus could of course provide that for them. External review and THEC review would occur simultaneously, allowing for the campus to respond to all comments and questions at the same time. The full revised NAP would be the result of the disciplinary expertise offered by external review, plus any THEC staff questions. However, if all questions and comments posed by the external reviewer and THEC staff are addressed in the first submission of the NAP, no revisions would be necessary, and the program could request to appear on the commission agenda. We have pros and cons for each of these options. First of all, this option reduces the number of THEC submissions, the minimum number of submissions, from 3 to 2. It streamlines the required fields by that 30% that I mentioned already, and it has the potential to remove 3 to 6 months or more from the total process. It integrates external review and THEC review. The submission is streamlined to what is required by statute and policy. The 2 submissions would be more digestible for faculty authors, meaning that they could take it in smaller steps rather than submitting one huge document. However, this process would still require some front-end planning and writing for campuses, much more so than one option we'll talk about today, but still significantly less than the current process. Before I pass the presentation over to my colleague, AJ, does anyone have any questions about process 1? And I'm happy to go back to the image slide if necessary.
No questions? Not yet.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I started my presentation right out with, hello. I will be presenting process 2 and 3, campus response, our recommendation, and suggested next steps. In this process, campuses could potentially have one submission designed to align with our statutory responsibility and policy regarding criteria review. The campus would submit external review recommendations after the public comment period is complete. Following the public comment, the external review and THEC review would happen simultaneously, allowing for campus to respond to all questions and comments at one time. If all questions and comments posed in the external review and THEC staff are addressed, no revisions would be necessary, and the program may request to appear on the commission agenda. If necessary, the campus may need to submit a revised NAP based on the external review and THEC questions. And I also wanted to note that process 1 and 2 are similar, apart from when the NAP is submitted to THEC. As before, in process 1, we have some pros and cons for process 2. So I'm sure you noticed that this process could be the fastest, but please keep in mind that there is also great potential for back and forth after significant effort has been put in for the document by the campus. Campuses did express concerns about having any input from the THEC or external, about not having, any input from THEC or external reviewers prior to the full submission. Other cons expressed by the campus include too much campus-specific information being exposed for replication. Also, the initial submission could be daunting for faculty authors on campus. Are there any questions for process 2 before I move on to process 3? I'm okay with that. Okay, so process 3. While process 1 and 2 are fairly similar, process 2 is substantially different. This option would result in a minimum of 3 submissions. The campus would submit an abstract of intent to be posted for the 15-day public comment. While posted, the campus can complete the external review checklist, which includes abstract materials and other information meant to provide a full picture of the program to the reviewer. Once THEC has verified all required documents are present, THEC staff will recommend reviewers to the campus. The external and THEC review will happen simultaneously once the preview is complete. Campus will then submit one final NAP addressing THEC and reviewer comments, and upon reaching satisfactory standard, a letter of support will be sent to the campus. Again, pros and cons of process 3. One of the main differences between 2 and 3 is the time on campus. Process 2 has a shorter time on campus, but there's some hesitation of programs possibly being submitted before they reach an appropriate level of development. Also, for less material to be sent out for public comment, process 3, however, did land squarely in the spirit of innovation. Our campuses enjoy the open door policy this process has created and encouraging collaboration through development across departments. Some of the cons included the program submitting before being fully developed, and the public comment has a potential of being less robust. Any questions?
Okay, I'll start.
All right.
So how often do the universities receive public comments, and how many comments do they typically get for the programs?
So I would say on average, since I've been here, I'm the most recent, but since I've been here, I've had maybe 1 to 2 comments per program. I'm looking to make sure that I'm correct. It's a 15-day period where about 1 to 2 comments per program are put in place.
Can I ask a follow-up question then? Where do those comments normally come from?
They vary because of course, we have every discipline that is submitted for program. It varies. Certain campuses have specific interests, and so depending on what is submitted is who usually submits a public comment.
Are they coming from other post-secondary institutions or are they coming from industry?
Post-secondary institutions.
So not industry.
Not.
Can you guys talk about how we send out the external review? Like what that process is from the perspective of institutions?
Public comment, you mean?
Yes, public comment, thank you.
I didn't hear your question, I'm sorry.
What is the process for sending out for public comment? How do institutions receive it, and what do they do with it?
Okay, yes. So currently how it stands is we get the LON and we receive from our campuses. We then post it on our website for 15-day, and then also my wonderful CAO sends it out, Julie sends it out to the rest of the CAOs for comment to let them know that it is posted on our website. And then they have a 15-day period, that's not my phone, I promise. They have a 15-day period to respond with any, and sometimes we do also get support of a program to say that they they're excited for it to come forward. So depending on that. And then from there is when we do our evaluation currently, and then we set forth towards external review.
Sticking on the public comment, how often are you all taking into account what is stated in the public comment?
Very often. So we do, once the public comment comes in, we do ask the campus that submitted to respond to the public comment so they can address any issues or concerns or any support that they may have within the public comment.
Someone who's gotten more acquainted with this process, what I've seen valuable is that we send it to the campuses, the provosts, and they send it on to faculty or departments that are most likely to want to respond to it. So it's not coming necessarily from the provost or the program liaison, it's coming from, this was public comment when Tennessee Tech came out with their nuclear engineering. The similar program at UT Knoxville responded to it, and that's public. They say, well, did you consider this? Did you consider this aspect of it? Did you consider all these different things? So it's coming from those who are very much entrenched in those disciplines typically, or that's my perspective.
No, I agree, and I would also add, speaking to what AJ said earlier about the letter of support, we've had TBR also send some letters if it's a transfer focused program, which has been nice as well.
I hate to ask it this way, but is it normally helpful comment, or is it more, no, my flag is planted here comment?
A little bit of both. I think we've, not as much of it may be, because one of the things we ask for in the documentation is the campus has to list other programs. So we will get a, hey, you missed this concentration we have at our institution kind of thing. So there's, again, a little bit of both. Yeah.
What happens at the campus level prior to a launch submission?
It varies on campus, to be honest. But basically, it is the liaison that we have and their campus stakeholders getting together to sort of write up a synopsis of what they plan to do moving forward. We get more detail in some and less detail in others, but mainly it is required.
Is that reviewed by the governing board prior to the lawn being submitted?
In some institutions, yes, and in some, no. Yeah.
Do you use a template, or are there certain things that every institution knows that they have to submit?
There is a checklist posted on our website that is what is required for submission. I'm just going back to what the current process looks like.
But to your point, it's not a template, it's like, you could give like, an 8-page versus a single page.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask this, if I could follow up on the line there. You said it differs by institution whether or not the governing board sees that. And one of the things that I've heard from a lot of people is that, I say a lot of people, it's unfair, but several people, that maybe THEC shouldn't belong in that because the governing board of the institution should have control over that. I guess my thought is, why wouldn't the governing board have sights on that before that line was ever submitted?
To answer, that is a campus choice. So I think that it would be more prudent for the campus to answer that question. But I do think that a lot of campuses rely on our expertise and our ability to add quality to what they submit. And so we have had some feedback from our campuses that they enjoy some of the information that we provide to move their program forward.
Let me drill down on it a little bit more. Are there any LGIs or any campus in UT system that would make that comment?
Yes.
Okay. So there would be a value add there.
Yes.
As well.
Is part of that also because of timing as well? That, I mean, they've got, in order to get in front of their board's meeting quarterly, it's they just kind of want to get out there to us to start that process. But that was a recent policy change, correct, on when the timing of that was?
I know it's hard to keep up with all the policy changes we bring you guys, but that was one of the first things we did, because there was a pretty significant bottleneck. So we loosened up the requirements on now we just say the board has to see it before it comes to the commission. And actually, that was Memphis had started to do some delegation, and so we realized that was really shortening their processes and wanted to provide that same flexibility to other campuses if they wanted to do it. And so some have done that.
Okay.
Any other questions before I move on? Okay.
Just the basic one is, was there a preference from the universities that you heard?
Thank you for leading me in. So our campus response, Katie and I convened our program liaisons to present and discuss the 3 processes presented today. By anonymous submission, process 1 and 3 received the most favorable comment. Some takeaways include having clear requirements as being valuable, statutory requirements as being necessary, and having enough for campus submission for a robust public comment.
So process 2, you said was the most expedient one, which was not selected by the campuses?
It was selected, but it didn't, so I did the numbers. It was selected, but there was only one selection for process 2. And the way that they submitted their selection, it leaned into process 1 more with their suggestions. And so it was 1 adjacent, essentially.
What's a site visit look like?
Wonderful. So it depends on the campus. We have, because of COVID, recently added virtual site visits. It's a day of which we go to the campus, we meet with, and if it's on site, we meet with community partners, we view the facilities, we talk with the faculty that will be in charge of producing this program. We have some industry support. We also talk with students to figure out their interests and their understanding of the proposed program and how to move forward. And it's really just a day of us being engulfed in what will happen on campus should the program be approved.
So you mentioned industry again. So I think one of the challenges that industry has is that there's not a clear definition of what they need. So they're coming to the table and they're saying, yes, this program, I will hire from this program.
Generally, they will hire. Some of the industry support does provide internships. They're really woven in. They have advisory boards for some of the programs that we have. They're really woven into the program in its entirety. And so they have investment into what we are presenting to them. And they love to come, and some of them are alumni. They really have a good time saying that they are excited about the new program.
It's a standard meeting in any site visit, and the external reviewer has ample time without administrators and faculty to ask questions like, what do you need? How are you communicating with the campus? Is this program, if you've looked at the curriculum, is it going to meet the needs of your industry? So they're really great conversations. We've had excellent feedback from external reviewers as well about the relationships that our campuses have with industry.
And I would add, we also require letters of support as part of the documentation. And we've shifted it to specifically say, we want the letters of support to tell us how that employer is going to support. Is it financially, because we do have some that invest? Is it internships? Is it hiring folks? Is it being on an advisory board? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Is there a checklist that the external reviewer goes through every time? It's more or less a checklist that they're walking through to how they're going to spend their day.
Yes, so we provide the external review, if I may, we provide the external reviewer with an agenda prior to their site visit, as well as some questions that general questions that we like to keep top of mind for them to review to make sure that the program that is submitted to them is fully robust.
Really sad question I'm about to ask you, because I just
Okay.
don't know.
I'm a happy person though, so.
What is the profile of an external reviewer?
What do you mean by profile?
What's that? What do we look for in an external reviewer? What does
Okay.
it take to become one?
Yeah, so it's someone that is,
What's happening here?
You never know.
we ask for someone that's out of the state of Tennessee. We also ask for someone that has general expertise within the field of the program being submitted. We ask that they have expertise not only in their background, but also education-wise. Am I missing anything?
I would say administrative experience.
Yes.
So we're looking for somebody who has started maybe a similar program or administered a similar program so that they can speak to some of the stuff beyond curriculum, or in addition to curriculum, I should say, that is helpful to programs, because they'll say, when we started our program, this happened and we weren't prepared for it. Here's what you could do to be prepared. So I would say administrative experience is typically pretty important.
Absolutely.
The other thing I would add is we also try to ensure they're from a similar type of institution. So we look at if it's programmatically accredited and the proposed program is trying to get that same sort of accreditation, we want to make sure that they have that. So like if it's a business program, we would want an AACSB accredited reviewer. So.
Thank you, that's helpful. So look, can I keep on going?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Can we point to some times where during this approval process, under the current process, that, I hate to say it this way, but I kind of keep thinking, how did THEC save an institution from itself that was proceeding, barreling down the tracks, and because of our process at THEC, that we were able to help them pull the brakes on a program that they're later on glad that, boy, we're glad we didn't get into that. Do we have any anecdotal information we can point to?
Yeah, I think a couple things. We've gotten, frankly, we've had a couple external reviews that have recommended that we don't move forward. And we did have one campus that paused that program, went back to the drawing board and started it over and ended up with a stronger program.
And what was the attitude of the institution when they went through that?
That's a really good question.
Thank you. I was thinking of it. I'm working on that one.
There was a lot of different attitudes across the campus. That's a hard question. There's disappointment. Because when campuses are proposing these, they're coming from a good place, and there's a lot of faculty time and administrative time spent. So there was a lot of time that I'm sure they felt was kind of wasted. I think they went through the stages of grief potentially, and then when they got to accept it, really went back and were thoughtful about a program and came up with a really exceptional program.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
So along the same lines and tied to process 3, with how fast industry is changing today as compared to the time of change that happens at the campus level, does process 3 make more sense to think about more innovative programs and really being able to lean into industry at that pace of speed versus 1? Because if if people come back and say, oh, that doesn't work. I think in the campus level, they spend so much time focusing on it as opposed to ideating. Like, how do we help speed things up in a way that's innovative, that helps feed the business community that we have across the state?
So that was one of the pros of Process 3, was that it did provide innovative thinking. But I think in Process 1 and 2, there is some space for that on campus, that we really wanted to encourage innovative thinking on campus. And so it's built in some time, but it's more on the campus side. So it's below the surface level on Process 1 and 2.
So when we look at the cons for process 3, when you say the programs could be submitted before fully developed, so are you saying that, hey, they could come in and they've done basically the bare minimum, and then when you start asking additional questions, there's not really a good answer? So I guess if I'm a university, how do I know that I'm getting to a place where I'm developed to where it's satisfactory and it's not oh, did you even try?
In this process, it puts more of the onus on the campus, and it allows them more autonomy, really. So the program liaison that is on campus, that is their job, to work with the faculty author to make sure that the program is prepared. I think that the way that this is set up is that they could bring it a little softer, I would guess is the word, to us before they have that fully flushed out, and so that would take less time on campus. But it is our goal to provide quality throughout each process. And so at some point, they're going to get the question and we're going to get the answer.
It'd be cool if THEC had an innovation team.
I would love to lead that. I have a flag there.
It is important to remember that in the background of this, even if it is a more exploratory program development, on the campus, there's still going to be curriculum committee stuff going on. So as these programs are developing, it takes a long time to get through all the committees that are necessary to add courses to a catalog. So there's some stuff going on in the background that also takes some time.
I would just say, I think that's a big focal point of the frustration we've heard from campuses. It's not, THEC's process is so long. THEC is just one part of the process, and there are many others too that are happening. I think that's what I've heard from talking to certain presidents from their perspective. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I had a question. It's not a question, an answer I know. Would governing boards require an external review, or would that happen without that being part of our process?
Not currently. They're all leaning to they point to our process, so.
If you go back one slide to the pros and cons. So if I'm reading this correctly, is the public comment potentially less robust because it's happening before the proposal is fully developed?
Correct.
Would that be offset by any chance in terms of like the stakeholder engagement and the exploratory process? Like, is there a way to build in, an expectation that there's robust stakeholder engagement, short of kind of what seems like more of a formal comment?
Yes. And so as Process 3 is written, and my eyes are older than me, so as Process 3 is written, what they submit is just the general information, the abstract of intent, but as public comment occurs, we sort of ask for some additional information, so the program overview, implementation timeline, feasibility, curriculum, accreditation, cost and revenues, and so that does happen on the tail end of the public comment.
So maybe there's the place where you could add something around like stakeholder engagement, like
Absolutely.
Chairwoman Scarlett's, like the industry engagement
Industry.
or other sort of campus engagement.
Absolutely. And that would be a point too. We have, Katie and I, it's in one of my slides, it's coming. Katie and I have redlined our checklist to fit each of these processes depending on what we decide today. And that's something that we would happily make sure that is in the front part of the process should we pick number 3.
So I have, are you suggesting that stakeholder engagement would be another option to get other campuses to use?
Well, probably a whole spectrum. I mean, industry partners, K-12, other campuses who are doing similar programs, just to, again, kind of build the success potential for the program by getting external stakeholder input in the design process, if it is a little bit more ideating.
May I? Yes. So, and anybody from THEC can answer this question if they would like to. What is the goal what is the goal of this process? Who's the customer in this process? What are we trying to achieve at the end of the day by having an institution go through this process, get their program approved?
The goal is to infuse quality, and I think the customer would be the student.
I agree with both of those.
Okay.
So hopefully you and I are right.
If it's you and I think we got this.
Maybe half of us. But I'm probably going to approach this from a very simplistic standpoint. I get my cookies from a lower shelf, so just bear with me. How I envision a program being developed is someone in the community, industry, nonprofit community, what have you, says, we have a need. And the institution says, we can help you with that. And I'm trying to figure out then, obviously quality is what we're trying to infuse. I love how you said that. And we're trying to make sure that the outcome of that process is a student that is able then to fill that need of industry. But I'm trying to figure out too that the institution would have that same goal of quality, right? Tell me what their incentive is to propose a program that doesn't have infused their view of quality into that. Help me understand why THEC has to be a reviewer of the quality piece. Why can't the institution do that? Because the institution, they're going to be the ones you're held accountable for. I mean, if they start a new program that doesn't produce a quality product, they are the ones who are on the hook for that. Or if it doesn't produce a product at all, they're on the hook for that. So they really got the skin in the game. Tell me why an institution needs THEC to do that.
I'm happy to step in here real quick and deflect, because I'm also pulling from the lower shelf too. But I think this came up in our November committee meeting. There are two aspects to that. One is, oftentimes we hear from the campuses, they want to be able to point to the state saying that black hat comment that we had back then, which is to show that there's someone at the state who's also, in addition to quality, looking at behalf of the student, is also looking at the resources of what we have across the state, the use of taxpayer money. That's the first thing that's listed in our statute, is that we are to study the needs of the state. So they look to us for that. The second is I think that the campuses are going to have a mind on quality, and I think it'd be great to hear from presidents on that. We'll have a couple here tomorrow. You can speak directly to that as well. But I think a coordinating body like THEC can set for the state side, what are we determining to be quality? What does quality mean to Tennessee? There might be a different example of what quality means to Clarksville versus Cookville versus Johnson City, and it might be very local community related, it might be institution related, but we as a coordinating body have the ability to say, this is what the state needs as well. And the quality definition might have another layer to it that we add to it as a state coordinating body. Julie, do you have any?
And I think that's, yeah.
Because thank you for putting that more eloquently. That's kind of where I was thinking too in terms of the stakeholder engagement, is that really demonstrating a need is being met through these programs, which when campuses come to present at the quarterly meetings, I feel like that is part of what they're sharing is, we've determined there's this need. But as part of what you're saying, Dr. Gentile, like avoiding duplication too, I mean, I think part of what I would imagine is that, you want to make sure you've got an eye towards the whole state, what programs are offered where, and where is there a real need versus maybe a duplication of efforts.
And I would say, Dr. Morrison, that and that's where that public comment, I think that's a part that we really see that actualized is because that's when campuses can weigh in on those kinds of issues, and you get that state perspective that we can coordinate. So I think that's also a piece that's really important with where we have a value add.
I'll say that there's duplicative efforts as far as going for quality. Because I will never say the institutions do not care about quality. They do. And you're right, their processes will ensure that too. As I've gotten to know this process better and better, the external review is actually my favorite part of it. Seeing the comments that come in that are comments that we couldn't necessarily provide, and that the institutions who are starting a new process, they may not know what questions to ask, and that
You don't know what you don't know.
you don't know. And having that coordinated effort out there, I think is one of the best parts of the processes I've been able to see. So it adds, again, a different layer of quality, different perspective of quality.
Not knowing how we're defining quality in this particular moment, do we ever learn from the institutions and the quality that they bring to us? And on the flip side, do the institutions ever learn from THEC about the quality that is expected of them?
Sorry, say it again. Do we ever learn about the
Do we ever learn from the institutions the quality they're bringing to us for whatever program it is, to THEC? And on the flip side, are the institutions learning from THEC what quality is expected of them? So are there higher quality measures for whatever program it might be coming from an institution, whereas THEC might say, well, we don't really need X, Y, and Z quality, but the institution's saying, that's really important.
Yeah, I'm gonna defer to Julie for the first part of it. The second part of part of our process is our state master plan, which is in need of change, revision as well, where we talk about what the qualities of the states are, what the priorities of the states are, and that then leads to what good quality of programs would be. So I'd say that gets to the second part of, here's what we see as values, our commission sees as values, the stakeholders see as values. Please speak to these programs, these values in your proposal. But Julie, to the first question.
Yeah, I would say we provide some flexibility in the documentation around, we require them to tell us, like, what are your program outcomes, your learning outcomes, how are you gonna assess the program? And so those are some of the questions that really, I think, get to the quality, but they tell us what those look like, and they tell us how they're gonna measure them. I guess I go to Katie and AJ. Any other, I know AJ's the assessment queen, but anything else that you would say for that quality piece?
I think that covers it.
And also, that's where the state definition of quality is in quality assurance funding that we have too. And so in the back end, once you get out of program approval monitoring, we do have a set of standards that we look at for quality. If that program can be accredited, is it accredited? Is the industry accreditation around that program saying, yes, 7 years out, this is still of quality? That we then tie to our funding. We have exit exams and general licensure pass exam rates that we also use in our quality assurance funding as well. So on the front end, we're looking more to the institutions to define that level of quality, and then we monitor it, tie it to funding in future years as well.
Roberts, I crack up. You've got to come up with new business cards for your employees because you label her the master of APIs. Used to
We're very creative in academic affairs.
The title for me is not great.
I have a follow-up question that's sort of tracking with Chairman Scarlett. Sort of driving towards that kind of ultimate quality goal, do you ever, as a coordinating body, pull together these various programs and, like, share best practices, share challenges? I think about, like, in the K-12 space, special education coordinators are constantly convening across the state to kind of learn what's working, where their challenge points are. I just wonder if that's something that happens.
We do. And we also convene our liaisons quarterly to have those types of conversations, to see what's working and what's not. Talk about the various programs that they have on campus and how we can facilitate helping them move forward. So yes, we do. All right, are we, yeah? Okay. What we've all been waiting for. Process 1 is our recommendation. This process. Hear me out. Wait a minute.
This process has been great. First interruption. This is why I'm really happy we have committees like this. These are the type of conversations we've been wanting to have about these processes.
Absolutely.
So,
and we're really excited to have this conversation today. I was playing Eye of the Tiger on the drive-in this morning, so I'm pumped and ready for this. This process has greatest potential for fewer holdups during the review while maintaining quality, which we talked about earlier. This process is most aligned with the THEC policy and statute, and it has enough information, but not so much that campuses can still protect their intellectual properties and creative processes. Also, our rationale, it has the greatest potential to move programs through the approval the quickest. I know it doesn't seem like that, but it does. It's most aligned it's most approachable for faculty authors, so we also would like for us to keep in mind that the faculty members on campus are who are really writing these program proposals. And so this makes it digestible and understandable for them. And then it encourages a robust and collaborative public comment. We really want to lean into our other campuses having enough information to provide public comment, because that's really where we get some insight prior to the external review as to whether or not this program makes sense for our state.
Well, you shocked me, I'm not gonna lie. Okay.
To that third bullet point, we talked about this back in the November committee meeting. Just keep in mind that while we have program liaisons at all our institutions who are experts in our processes, it's the faculty who might be stumbling through this process for the first time. Yeah. And that's why it can take longer on the campus. Our process that we've created can take longer on campus because they're learning how to submit a quality proposal for it.
Well, Dr. Tell, something you said earlier, and it's not lost on me, is the black hat piece of it. As a member of the State Building Commission, we're the boogeyman for so many different things out there, where anytime somebody doesn't get what they want on campus, it's, State Building Commission won't let me do that. I've had many a conversation with campus administrators or alumni who've said, well, I want you to approve this. And I've said, haven't even been brought to us yet. Yeah. And then I have one former cabinet member who laid out this long Byzantine process one day about how the State Building Commission was holding up things. It took 39 months to build a building or get a project approved. And after I looked at it, and I said, we're 6 weeks right there. That's our piece of it. So, there is a component to it that I'm convinced sometimes THEC is made to be a boogeyman for some things. But to echo what Shirley Scarlett said, we've got to figure out a way to speed things up without losing quality. But industry expects us to move a lot faster than how we're moving. And the institutions feel that pressure from industry because if we're running a business, we're making decisions like this. We're not anticipating somebody saying, well, we need a program now, and then we're going to say, well, okay, in 18 to 24 months, you should be able to have that program. That's not viable. So, and if we can win that battle, then we're going to be better in all these other states. And we're beating these other states in a lot of ways, but we've got to figure out how to be more agile and be more responsive to the market.
I agree, and I like that it was also the most aligned with statute, and, again, to your point, I think you always want to be, not going outside the lines in terms of what's required. And also, maybe looking at that external review committee and ensuring that you've got adequate industry representation to make sure that there's that kind of, thought flow with a more expedited process.
And in both of those notions, Katie and I are ready to move. So given our recommendation, Katie and I have also revised the current checklist to reflect the process change. Our next steps would be to submit a new checklist for campus comment, pilot immediately with some select programs, implement the updated process by March of this year, create training documents, as you said earlier, analyze time to completion. As I'm the assessment queen, I think that we need to have some assessment built into this process, and possibly merge the expedited and non-expedited framework for a report to this committee by our May meeting. And so what we're saying is essentially let's all decide what process we would love to do. We're open. I think that the three, and Katie, I think you mirror this, the three that we've presented to you today, we are okay with any direction that we go in, but we're ready to move in whatever way so that we can cut the timeline and make sure that our industry partners are excited.
2 questions.
Absolutely.
The expedited, why wouldn't we just go ahead and merge them? Why do we have to have a further conversation?
So our plan is essentially to merge them. We that does require a policy change, which would mean that we would present that to you in the May meeting.
We also want to ensure that the changes that we are implementing are going to make getting rid of expedited worth it. We want it to be a really short timeline, but we want to get the data first to ensure that is the case. If it's not, then we can bring an expedited policy that is even shorter for those really high need programs.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I know you've done a lot of work with all the campus level CAOs, whoever else your contact is. How much of that conversation and these changes are getting reported up to the president?
I can speak for my campuses. I know that most of my liaisons have a really good relationship with their president. So I would assume, and I'm pretty sure that they would back me in, that they have a lot of conversation about what we are talking about with their presidents. I know, I'm pretty sure your campuses are the same.
I think it varies, it depends, and there's separate dynamics sometimes between systems and the LGIs and all that, we all know that. But I think on the whole, we really tried to take a huge swath of feedback when we even sat down to consider how we could move this forward within the current policy and even in the future if we had to outside of this policy with huge policy change. But I think we tried to take into account what people have been saying at all levels. So when we talked to faculty authors at site visits, what did they say about the process? When we talked to external reviewers, what did they say about the process? Presidents, everybody, a huge swath of information. We're willing to go back to our campuses with the checklist and say, what do you think? Do you hate it? What can we do to make this easier for you and more aligned to what you need?
I think there's just a lot of benefit from a communication standpoint to ensure that all the right people at the institutions have the information necessary to know that this is changing.
Well, my intention is after the commission meeting tomorrow is to email the presidents to let them know what's been discussed on this and what we intend to move forward with. That said, conversations we've heard from presidents, I had our commission meetings in the past, it's like they would desire that we not, some of them would desire that we not approve bachelor degree programs, that we just do master's and doctorate. And within our statute, we can't make that decision. This is, I feel, the swiftest we can be with our statute, with our policy, with the campuses. But there are swifter ways, and that comes down to changing statute. And I've got my own thoughts on why it's critical for the state to have approval of those various levels, but I think we'll have presidents who are still going to suggest that.
I feel like it's gotten serious also because Scott came to the table. I was watching the screen earlier. Scott, I don't know if you're the right person to ask this question or not, so I hesitate to put you on the spot like this, but I know that I'm assuming you're probably out watching legislation as it comes through. What bills are out there that you've seen filed already that could have an impact on this process? Because I know one of the things that was mentioned earlier is that this fits in the current statutory scheme. What potential changes are out there? I know a bill can be filed. Doesn't mean it passes by any stretch, but I mean, what are you seeing?
To date, I have not seen any specific legislation come through. That said, this is, the legislation was out for the weather last week, and bill filing deadline, I think, is the next week, 31st. So I haven't gone through what was filed overnight and in 10 track this morning yet today. I haven't seen it yet.
It did not come through today, the 10 track.
That said, there are a number, of course, always caption bills that can be amended to accommodate that in Title 49.
I think we can anticipate if legislation does come, that what I just said about what we are approving would change.
Okay, well, any additional questions for Dr. Roberts, Ms. Jones, or Dr. Brackett? Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, the final agenda item for today is other business. Are there any other business items that the committee would like to take up?
I don't have anything that requires approval. Can I bring something up?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am, because I know that you're just dying to continue your reign as chair.
I know.
Dr. Gentile and I, staff had a conversation today, and Chris Mustaine was part of that, has begun doing some research on some things. And I would just like for other members of THEC, especially this committee, to be thinking about honestly how we can resume our leadership position in higher education that I feel like we enjoyed a few years ago. And I really think that, once again, those who can figure out how to be agile and be faster to help generate a good product that supports industry, supports high-paying jobs, or And not need some high-paying jobs, although that's a great goal for me. For some, the goal is not a high-paying job. The goal is a rewarding job. Okay, that may be intrinsic or extrinsic, but rewarding. So I should say it that way. But I want to start having some conversations about why does it take 120 hours to graduate? Okay, I know some other states are having those conversations as well. I was reading something, and I wish I could find the article a few weeks back, that really talked about an age of specialization. Why are we looking at 120-hour programs and forcing people who have no interest in some of these different things, different classes, that add really no value to their ability to go be someone who is good in information technology or good in logistics or what, pick a specialty, good in accounting. Why are we forcing people to take classes that don't add enough value to what industry is looking for? Because industry may say, hey, that's great that, they got 120 hours. But if they're going to take an extra 30 hours of something, we'd much rather be in these areas than making sure they take 2 PE classes. And I'm not trying to be silly about it, but we really owe it to higher education and the students that we serve as a whole to try and figure out how do we get them out more quickly and better prepared to be productive citizens, whatever that looks like, in their mind. How do we get them out? And I also want to consider 2 different things here. The traditional 4-year track, for some people, that's what they're going to go do, because that's how we've always done it. But we also ought to be thinking about, too, there are students out there that they're never going to go to a college football game. They're never going to go use the rec facility at a college. They're never going to do all those things. Are there 2 different tiers of what somebody has to pay for to get a 4-year education? And then do we even call it a 4-year education anymore? Let's just figure out how we make sure the degree means something to that student as they're trying to get that next stage of life. So I hope we can have conversations around how many hours it really takes to graduate. Really, we ought to dig into these accreditation entities and try and figure out what value they're adding. And there's more getting to be, as you and I talked about, Dr. Chantal, you helped coach me a little bit. I say coaching, enlighten me. Is there's a lot more competition in that space nowadays, and other states are looking at that, as we talked about what accreditation really looks like going forward. So I hope as we talk about access and affordability and quality that we can consider everything to be on the table and not just trying to make sure it fits in the neat little box that we've always talked about. I think we've done a really good job in Tennessee over the last decade of breaking the mold on 2-year schools and breaking the mold on TCATs and showing people that success isn't necessarily defined by what you do from ages 18 to 22, and you should come out of one of our 4-year schools with a degree and it means this. Figure out, all these different pathways, and are there faster pathways that guarantee equal success or better success than how we're doing it right now?
May I follow up on that?
At any time.
So 3 things, because I totally agree with what you just said. One of them is a fantastic example we have in Tennessee is Blue Cross Blue Shield and the relationship they have with ETSU. Students are graduating with a job and a bachelor's in computer science in 2.5 years. That's such a needed skill set. And it's a great example of industry partnering with, in some cases, I think, pushing the post-secondary institutions to be able to make sure that they're able to fill the jobs of today. But that computer science is needed throughout the entire state, rural, urban, and suburban, right? Another fantastic example, if we had one, would be tied to K-12 talent. We have a huge gap. We have challenges with students coming into post-secondary that are not prepared. We don't necessarily have the quality teachers in each of the rooms or filling all the spots that are out there. And so how do we think about talent and K-12 educators in a different way? Because there's a lot of best practices. And the third thing I want to tag on to, something we've had conversations about before, is tied to the outcome-based funding formula. I think it's still absurd that we have a 6-year graduation and a 3-year graduation versus 2 and 4. Tied to that too is this concept of a rewarding degree. rewarding, say rewarding career.
Roaring job, I think is what I said. It was a one syllable word.
So, how do we think about that differently? How do we think about the outcomes-based formula differently? Right now, it's 4 and 6, right? So how do we think about it from a different perspective? How do we reward programs that are doing a phenomenal job? And what do we do about those programs that are not doing a phenomenal job? And especially with those high-need careers that exist right now, computer science, education, among other things. So thank you for bringing that up.
Well, thank you for doing a lot better job than I did with that.
Look forward to seeing the research.
For the good of the group.
Well, we are, sure. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
He is just started. Like the last week. Well, I would love to have some conversation, because there's a question here, we think of things that you know of.
I think
Yeah, no, definitely check.
Innovation, that's why I thought that's what we were going with, but I think that
what are the things you're trying to
if
say?
any campus was listening to this conversation, that we are also expecting more applicants. Versus, like, you can't use THEC as your excuse for not providing some because I will say, like, in order for us to do that, we should have a program. Like, how many
And well, I should
and they were
UCC. I mean, that's just an example of someone who comes to and being innovative.
yes, and that's so we kind of getting campuses to yes. And there, and maybe I think there are classes. But there are things. Like I just bowled when I was in college. I totally did.
First semester.
And it was just like something to do. Still can't bowl over 100. Like what?